Last summer, I lived in a yurt on the Boston Harbor Islands, a chain of glacial islands in sight of the downtown skyline. I was the official poet in residence, living alongside artist and photographer Robin MacDonald-Foley, whose photos you're seeing. Every day I would travel by boat to a different island. My goal? To meet the people who work and play in the harbor, to listen to their stories, and, based on those stories, to write them poems. I invite you to come to the islands with me, to see their beauty, and to meet some of the people I found there. The first I want to tell you about was Brittany, who was working at the park for the summer. Many of the park rangers are college students and classroom teachers who, a few months of the year, live entirely different lives outdoors. For Brittany, this summer was a spontaneous decision, a detour from the path she'd envisioned that was opening her eyes to new possibilities. It was both of our first times on the islands. Her poem reads, For Brittany, say yes. Say divergence from the plan is the plan. Say keep it sacred. You can never step in the same water twice. Say drama is just people caring really hard at each other. Say new friends are always friends, new trails of thought worn into my mountain brain. Say even an island is made what it is by the people you meet there. Say you came, sight unseen. Say you'll never leave. Not really. Say yes. Written on August 31st, 2019, on Spectacle Island. When it comes to visitors, the Harbor Islands are the site of 1,000 reunions, old friends meeting for a day out of the city, out-of-towners visiting locals, grandparents with the grandkids for the weekend. This next poem was for a woman's brother and his wife. These siblings grew up in Boston, but now the brother lived far away and was visiting. And as I wrote this poem, he was swimming out, like they'd done when they were kids, to meet his sister on the island. For Diane and Paul, from Meg. She was landing as you swam in, shirt over your head, and we were kids again, growing up on the water. And the currents still connect us, though I don't see nearly as much of you as I'd like. Let the numbers rest for these few days while we explore, while we wild ourselves with hikes and harbor air, while we remember family is a sort of vessel, too. You have always been a savvy navigator. From this deck, with you two as crew, all harbors look like home. Written August 20th, 2019, on George's Island. This idea of the islands as a home kept coming up. The way that they were not where most people lived, but were a sort of secular pilgrimage, a site of childhood summer trips and adult getaways. I'm quite fond of a line I wrote for a young woman named Brianna on the Greenway, who told me about growing up swimming with her family. We know the world is mostly ocean, I wrote for her, which is to say, it's all home. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Part of writing poems for strangers is making space for their doubt, their trauma, their anxiety. I ask everyone the same question. What do you need a poem about? I say need instead of want because I think poetry has the potential to be needed, to be necessary, to help us make sense of our ever messier and more complicated lives. People tell me about loved ones, but also about deaths, about breakups, about the way things aren't going quite as planned. This next poem was written for a young park ranger, a marine biologist in training who was studying whales, but told me she felt uncertain about the future. Whales, she told me, can hear each other's songs from all the way on the other side of the Atlantic. Except, of course, she added, when we fill the water with motorboat sounds. For Courtney, when the tides go out, the islands double in size, take on new shapes. Land and water are not so different after all. You trace your whale song along the edges of continents, calling out to be heard, for the past and future to meet. I think you'll be friends. You whisper to each ghost, each sketch and map pasted into journals that pile up voice memos you never listen to. Is it because the boat engines are too loud, and you vibrate on the inside with everything in the ocean, unable to turn it off? You are the current and the migration, cutting through, always in motion. However many ghosts you leave, you will leave them on their own course. This is not drifting. Written August 27, 2019, on Spectacle Island. I'll leave you with a poem for Robin, the other resident artist who took these photos. She came out to the islands every summer in her childhood and makes it back out every chance she gets, documenting the shifting pattern of the islands and their ecologies in her photographs. It's a part of her identity. I'm an island girl, she says to me many times. You don't have to live somewhere all the time for it to be home. Here's what I wrote for her. For Robin, island girl sees sculpture in every boulder on the beach, documents the falling trees and shifting tides. Island girl stays for one more night. Always one more. Her cottage is on her back, the wind in her hair, and she knows the name of every secret pathway like it's sacred. Look, here is her cathedral. No granite bulwark, but an island, carved by time and memory, a dancing ghost, a living monument. Island girl has always been an artist, has always been in residence. The yurt is just a plus. A warm embrace of wine and conversation that erodes a stranger's face until it is sculpted, in my mind, into a friend's. Written September 1st, 2019, on Peddocks Island. Robin was one of dozens of incredible artists and nature lovers and curiosity seekers I met in the summer of 2019 as the poet in residence on the Harbor Islands. She makes me wonder if maybe we aren't all island people in our own way, yearning for Spectacle or Lovell's or George's or Peddocks, yearning to be everywhere we can't be right now because it's part of who we are. Home is just the place we keep coming back to, and the islands are always waiting.